Someone may be thinking about you much more deeply than you imagine. The reason might be a quiet change you made without fully realizing how powerful it was. Stay with me until the very end, because what happened between you and this person could explain far more than you expect. You did not come across this message by chance. Sometimes a few simple words catch our attention because they connect with feelings we have been carrying inside for a long time. Maybe that is why you stopped instead of scrolling past. Perhaps a part of you already recognized that this story would feel familiar. There may be someone in your life or someone from your past who has been quietly struggling with your absence. Not because you chased them, pleaded for another chance, or demanded answers. The real change happened when you stopped doing the one thing they always believed you would keep doing. That one quiet decision shifted everything in ways they never expected. Before we go further, if you enjoy learning about relationships, human behavior, and personal growth, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another video. And keep watching, because the next part often surprises people who have lived through this experience. Looking back, the moment you finally chose yourself probably was not dramatic at all. There was no emotional speech, no huge argument, and no unforgettable goodbye. It was simply a calm decision made somewhere deep inside. Instead of giving all of your energy to someone else, you finally allowed yourself to breathe. Instead of constantly worrying about where you stood, you welcomed a little peace into your life. You stopped explaining your heart again and again. You did not walk away because you hated them, and you were not trying to teach them a lesson. You simply decided that your own peace deserved the same care you had always given everyone else. That quiet change created an impact they never saw coming. Deep inside, they had convinced themselves that you would always be there. They believed you would continue understanding every mistake, forgiving every disappointment, waiting through every period of silence, and hoping they would eventually meet you where you were. Your care felt permanent to them. It felt almost impossible to lose. When people believe someone will never leave, they often stop protecting the connection they have. They stop making that relationship a priority. Difficult conversations get pushed into the future because they assume there will always be another opportunity to fix things later. But then something unexpected happened. You stopped trying to convince them of your value. You stopped explaining why certain actions hurt you. You stopped proving your loyalty over and over again. Most importantly, you stopped exhausting yourself just to keep the relationship alive. Your silence carried more meaning than all of your previous words ever could. That is often the moment when buried emotions begin rising to the surface. People rarely recognize the true value of something that feels endlessly available. The possibility of losing someone meaningful has a way of revealing feelings that had been hidden beneath comfort and routine. Once your constant presence disappeared, the emotional security they quietly depended on disappeared with it. Stay with me, because what happens next explains why some people suddenly begin thinking about someone they believed would always remain close. Whether they admit it or not, their mind keeps returning to moments they once overlooked. They remember your laughter echoing through ordinary conversations. They remember your patience during difficult times. They remember how you cared without expecting anything in return or keeping score. They think about the many times you stayed even when leaving would have been easier and perhaps healthier for you. They remember feeling understood in ways they rarely experienced with anyone else, especially the parts of themselves they tried so hard to hide. The hardest realization often comes later. It is discovering your worth only after your energy is no longer part of their everyday life. Even if they never send a message, never mention your name, or continue acting as though everything is perfectly fine, your absence has created a space that cannot easily be replaced. They may stay busy. They may share happy moments online. They may fill every hour with work, friends, or distractions, hoping the feeling eventually fades. But quiet moments have a way of bringing the truth back. During peaceful evenings, long drives, or ordinary routines, memories appear without warning. They begin wondering what changed. They ask themselves why your absence feels heavier than they expected. That question follows them far longer than they ever imagined. And if this story feels familiar so far, keep watching, because the next part reveals why genuine peace often speaks louder than endless effort ever could. They may look like everything is moving forward, yet something inside still feels incomplete. What they miss is not only the relationship itself, they also miss the version of themselves that existed when they felt fully accepted by you. Sometimes another person helps us discover parts of ourselves that remain hidden for years. When someone truly listens without judging, understands without trying to change us, and accepts both our strengths and our flaws, something important begins to awaken. That is exactly what happened between the two of you. You saw sides of them that very few people ever noticed. Around you, they felt safe enough to lower their guard, even if only for a short time. Once you stepped away, they were left alone with thoughts and emotions they had spent a long time avoiding. Without your calming presence, those feelings became much harder to ignore. They could no longer distract themselves the same way. Quiet moments suddenly carried more weight. Small memories appeared without warning. Ordinary places reminded them of conversations they once took for granted. That is often when people begin understanding the true value of someone who made them feel genuinely seen. Keep watching, because the next part explains why this realization can become impossible to escape once it begins. What you did required more courage than most people realize. You did not become angry. You did not turn cold. You did not try to hurt them the way you had been hurt. You never played games, searched for revenge, or tried to make them jealous just to get their attention. Instead, you quietly chose your own peace. You chose dignity over constant disappointment. You chose self-respect instead of endless self-sacrifice. That quiet confidence speaks louder than endless explanations ever could. It shows that your value does not depend on another person's approval. It reminds people that genuine love should never require someone to lose themselves just to keep a connection alive. Now their thoughts continue returning to the past in ways they never expected. During quiet evenings, long nights, and ordinary moments, they question the choices they once believed were right. They ask themselves why they failed to appreciate what was standing in front of them. They wonder why they assumed you would always stay, no matter what happened. Daily routines no longer feel exactly the same because your absence quietly follows them into places where they least expect it. Sometimes they scroll through old conversations. Sometimes they replay familiar memories in their mind. Sometimes they type your name into a search bar or begin writing a message only to erase every word before sending it. Reaching out would mean facing a truth they avoided for a long time. It would mean admitting that you offered something honest, stable, and real, but they were not emotionally ready to receive it. As time passes, feelings they once buried become impossible to keep hidden. Regret grows louder. Longing becomes harder to ignore. Self-reflection replaces the confidence they once had. The person who brought calm into their life is no longer there, and that empty space keeps reminding them of everything they overlooked. But this is also where many people misunderstand what these emotions really mean. Strong feelings after losing someone do not automatically mean lasting change has happened. Real growth requires more than missing someone. It requires honesty, responsibility, and the willingness to become a different person. Stay with me, because this next part could completely change the way you see situations like this. A person can care deeply about you and still struggle to give you the relationship you deserve. Someone can love you and still hesitate when commitment requires courage. They can miss you every single day and still delay making the changes that truly matter. Feelings by themselves do not create healthy relationships. Lasting transformation happens only when emotions are followed by action, maturity, and consistent effort. That is why this chapter is not about running back the moment someone begins missing you. It is about recognizing the quiet strength you discovered inside yourself. You showed them what calm, dependable, and sincere love looked like without trying to control their decisions. You gave with an open heart. You remained consistent even when things became difficult. You allowed your actions to speak much louder than promises ever could. Now, without you chasing, convincing, or proving anything, they are left to experience the silence your absence created. Sometimes silence teaches lessons that endless conversations never could. Distance often reveals the importance of someone far more clearly than constant closeness ever does. While you were always there, your love became something they expected rather than appreciated. Only after you stepped away did they begin understanding how much your presence had shaped their everyday life. This is also the moment when you need to protect the progress you have made. If you return too quickly or rescue them from the discomfort they are finally experiencing, you may interrupt the very growth they still need to complete. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give another person is allowing them to face the lessons they have been avoiding. And what happens after that may surprise you more than you think, so keep watching until the very end. This quiet space is accomplishing what countless conversations never managed to do. The distance is giving life the opportunity to teach lessons that your love had been trying to show all along. This was never about getting even or making someone suffer for what happened. It has always been about allowing everything to settle where it truly belongs. The right person does not wait until they lose you before realizing your value. They appreciate your presence while you are still standing beside them. They choose you because they genuinely see who you are, not because they suddenly become afraid of life without you. Maybe this message feels personal because you have a caring heart. People who care deeply often mistake love for responsibility. They believe it is their job to fix every problem, carry every burden, and stay no matter how exhausted they become. You may still sense their regret. You may think about them unexpectedly, or even dream about them from time to time. But those feelings are not always a sign that you should return. Sometimes they simply remind you that the connection was meaningful and real. Some people leave a lasting mark on our lives even when the relationship itself is not meant to continue forever. Very often, the lessons remain even after the people move on. While you were together, they may have avoided looking at their own habits, fears, and emotional patterns. Now they no longer have your reassurance to lean on every time life becomes uncomfortable. They are left facing themselves in a way they could not avoid before. Stay with me, because the next part explains why that can become the beginning of real change instead of just temporary regret. If they ever return, let it be because they have truly grown as a person. Let it be because they are ready to choose you with honesty, maturity, and consistent effort instead of acting from loneliness, fear, guilt, or regret. Otherwise, the same painful cycle is likely to begin all over again. And if they never come back, never let that convince you that you were hard to love. Sometimes people simply are not ready for the kind of love standing right in front of them. The people who truly match your growth, your values, and your heart will recognize your worth without endless confusion or mixed signals. If someone is thinking about you more now, it is probably not because you chased after them or tried harder than everyone else. It is because you finally stopped chasing and remembered your own value. There is a quiet confidence in that choice, and it is something you should never give away again. There is another side to this story that many people overlook. When you stepped back, you did more than remove yourself from their daily routine. You also removed the steady support they had quietly become used to. Your attention made them feel important. Your patience brought them comfort during difficult moments. Your understanding gave them emotional stability in ways they may never have fully recognized. Without that familiar support, they may now feel unsettled in ways they never expected. At first, they probably tried to explain your absence with simple excuses. Maybe they told themselves you were busy, needed space, or would eventually come back like before. They filled their schedule with work, hobbies, friends, or endless distractions. But distractions only last for so long. Keep watching, because what happens after the distractions fade is often the moment everything becomes clear. Sooner or later, the quiet moments always arrive. Just before falling asleep, during a peaceful drive, or in the middle of an ordinary day, your absence becomes impossible to ignore. They catch themselves remembering old conversations without meaning to. They compare new people to you without even realizing they are doing it. They begin wondering why nothing feels quite the same anymore. What they miss is not only your presence. They miss the peace they experienced when you were part of their everyday life. That is why their thoughts continue returning to you. They are slowly beginning to understand that you did not walk away because your love disappeared. You stepped away because you finally respected yourself enough to stop ignoring your own needs. That realization quietly challenges their pride. You did not create unnecessary drama. You did not leave with anger or bitterness. You walked away with calm, dignity, and self-respect. It showed that your happiness was never meant to depend entirely on another person. That truth can be difficult for someone to accept after taking your presence for granted. They may eventually send a simple message just to see whether everything can return to the way it once was. If that happens, remain steady. Real change requires much more than comforting words or emotional promises. If nothing has truly changed beneath the surface, responding too quickly only brings back the same unhealthy pattern. The emotions you feel today are part of healing something that genuinely mattered. Missing someone does not automatically mean you should rebuild the relationship. Sometimes healing means choosing self-respect over familiarity. It means accepting that another person's emotional growth is not your responsibility to carry. You never relied on games or manipulation to become unforgettable. You simply stopped pouring endless love into a connection that could no longer hold it. Now the emptiness they feel reflects the space once filled by your kindness, patience, and care. At the same time, something powerful has changed within you. You are becoming stronger because you no longer chase people who refuse to meet you halfway. And you are becoming gentler because your sense of worth no longer depends on someone else's approval. That quiet transformation is something no one can take away, and it may become the greatest gift this entire journey has given you. Stay until the end, because the final lesson may change the way you see your own story forever. Whether they come back or not, this new version of you is not going anywhere. You are far less likely to make yourself smaller just to fit into someone else's world again. Instead, you will naturally attract people who appreciate your value from the very beginning. So stay where you are emotionally. Stay grounded in the peace you have worked so hard to build instead of worrying about what tomorrow may bring. The moment you stopped looking outside yourself for constant approval, you created space inside your heart where worry once lived. That quiet space is where real healing begins. At first, the silence may feel strange because you spent so much time surrounded by emotional confusion. But that silence is not your enemy. It is proof that you are slowly finding your way back to yourself. Your thoughts may still wander toward them from time to time because habits do not disappear overnight. The difference is that you are no longer ignoring your own needs just to keep someone else comfortable. For the first time in a long while, the relationship is being measured by honesty instead of endless effort. And honesty always lasts longer than pretending everything is fine. Stay with me, because the next part explains why this quiet change is more powerful than most people ever realize. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is the strongest choice a person can make. You are no longer carrying emotional burdens that were never yours to hold alone. You have stopped waiting for someone else to decide your value. That quiet confidence creates a shift they can feel, even if you have not spoken in a long time. They are beginning to understand how much comfort your love brought into their life, even when they failed to recognize it. Now they find themselves imagining different outcomes. They replay old moments and quietly wonder what they could have done differently. Those thoughts become stronger because they no longer have easy access to you. They miss more than your presence. They also miss the version of themselves they experienced while you were together. Your place in their life once felt natural, and without it, everything seems a little less steady. While time may feel heavy for them, your own path is becoming much clearer. There may still be moments when you question your decision or wonder if you were too firm. Whenever those thoughts appear, ask yourself one honest question. Did you walk away to hurt someone, or did you leave because staying was slowly taking away your peace? Real love should never ask you to become less than who you truly are. Leaving a situation where your kindness was constantly taken for granted was not giving up. It was choosing yourself. By stepping back, you quietly showed that your love has value and that it cannot remain available forever without mutual respect. If they are willing to grow, this moment gives them that chance. If they refuse, then your distance has protected you from repeating the same painful cycle. Sometimes the greatest victory is not loud or exciting. Sometimes it feels peaceful while carrying a little sadness for the future you once imagined. That sadness is simply letting go of a dream that could not become reality. Do not let that feeling erase the truth. You gave your best while the relationship allowed it, and when it began hurting your own well-being, you chose healthy boundaries. Keep watching, because the final lesson may be the one that stays with you the longest. Healthy boundaries are never acts of punishment. They simply reveal who is willing to respect, value, and protect the connection they have with you. What happens next belongs to them, not to you. As time moves forward, your heart begins learning something life-changing. Love does not have to feel like constant worry or emotional exhaustion. Once you understand that lesson, it changes the way you see every future relationship. Even if they return one day, you will no longer accept the same unhealthy pattern you once tolerated. You have learned too much to ignore the truth now. You are standing between the person you used to be and the stronger person you are becoming. Even if this season feels uncertain, it is quietly reshaping your future. You no longer spend every day wondering what they are thinking or searching for hidden signs in every message or silence. Instead, you trust what you already know. The connection was meaningful. It changed both of you. But growth, timing, and emotional readiness were simply not aligned. That acceptance is what brings real freedom. They can sense that your life is moving again. You are no longer waiting for them to decide your future. You did not leave to teach them a lesson, yet your absence became one anyway. What they choose to do with that lesson is now completely their responsibility. Your past may have shaped you, but it does not have to define who you become. Their choices no longer decide your direction. Your identity is no longer built on how someone else sees you. It is built on how you see yourself. Instead of asking whether you deserve someone's love, you now ask whether their love is healthy enough for your life. You have stopped making excuses for people who cannot meet you halfway. You no longer believe that love must always be painful to be meaningful. Little by little, you are discovering a deeper peace that no one can take away. Perhaps someone has only now begun to recognize your value after you stepped away. If that is true, it was never because you chased harder or tried to prove yourself more. It happened because you finally stopped chasing and remembered your own worth. That quiet confidence carries more strength than any argument ever could, and it is something you should never surrender again. If this message speaks to your journey, remember the lesson behind every part of it. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is often the first step toward the healthiest relationships you will ever experience. Whether your path eventually leads back to someone from your past or towards someone completely new who appreciates your value from the very beginning, your future no longer depends on waiting. They still remember the times you stayed even when loving them was not easy. They think about how you accepted the parts of them they rarely revealed to anyone else. What weighs on them most is realizing they overlooked your value while you were still beside them. Only after your attention, patience, and care were no longer part of their everyday life did they begin understanding what they truly had, whether they ever admit it or not. Your absence continues to stand out in quiet ways. They may never send a message. They may stay busy, share happy moments online, or act as though everything is perfectly fine. Even then, there can still be an empty space that only your presence once filled. You were never simply someone who loved them. You were someone who truly understood them. Losing that kind of connection is not only about missing a relationship. It can also mean missing the version of themselves they experienced when they felt completely accepted. Sometimes people carry hidden parts of themselves for years without realizing it. When someone understands us deeply, those hidden parts finally have room to breathe. When that connection disappears, we are often left facing ourselves in ways we can no longer avoid. That is what makes your choice so different. You did not become bitter. You did not seek revenge or try to create jealousy. You quietly stepped back with your dignity, your peace, and your self-respect still intact. That silent strength speaks louder than words ever could. If they have been reflecting lately, they may find themselves replaying old decisions during quiet nights when distractions finally disappear. They wonder why they failed to appreciate your value sooner. They question why they believed you would always remain there. Old conversations replay in their mind, and they ask themselves whether too much time has already passed. Sometimes they even think about reaching out, only to stop, because doing so would require admitting they were not ready for the kind of connection you offered. Now that your comforting presence is no longer there to distract them, emotions they once pushed aside begin rising to the surface. Regret, reflection, and unanswered questions become much harder to ignore, and that quiet realization may be the beginning of the change they never expected.